Hi, and welcome to PowerViews. I'm Dan McDade, your host and president of PointClear. PowerViews is dedicated to finding solutions to some of today's toughest marketing and sales challenges. My guest today is Bob Kelly. Bob is chairman of the Sales Management Association. His organization, which has thousands of members in 30 countries, promotes professional development, peer networking, best practice research, and thought leadership among professionals who support, manage, and coach and lead sales organizations. Prior to the Sales Management Association, Bob was Vice President of Operations and Strategy at Genuine Parts, and previously he was Director of Business Planning and the Director of Marketing Strategy at MCI WorldCom and a management consultant at the Alexander Group. Bob earned his MBA from Emory University after earning a BA from Washington and Lee University. Bob, welcome to PowerViews.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Appreciate you joining me today. Let's start off with something that I'm sure you would expect to be asked about, and that is, what changes do you see happening in marketing and sales as you look ahead to 2013?
Well, I'm happy to share my thoughts there. Let me first maybe set a little bit of context for your listeners, just so they have a good understanding of where I'm coming from, my perspective on a question like that. Our organization is predominantly made up of sales and sales operations leaders, and predominantly in B2B selling organizations. And I would say, in terms of size, those organizations are medium-sized to large organizations. Mostly U.S., probably 70% of them are based in the United States, another 10% or so in Canada. And so we do have a little bit of a global perspective, but pretty anchored in U.S., larger firms, B2B, and clearly from my perspective, and that which I can reflect from our members, is going to be mostly from the sales organization. So
right.
Let's get that established up front. So,
okay.
So in terms of things that are on the horizon, in the next short little while, say in the 2013 coming up, we see a number of things, including the increasing adoption of social media in the sales organization and the increasing adoption of mobile technology. I think both of those, and they're related things, by the way, but those are both interesting, I think, just from this standpoint of management practice. Those are really changing the way managers interact with salespeople, and that's something that we're very interested in. So some other things that we're interested in are also related to technology. We see the increased use of analytics in various ways, and I think the role of data and information and analytics will become more pervasive and more important to managers in large sales organizations. And then, we see generally that hiring, we don't expect hiring and growth to be fueled by increased headcount. We see the emphasis really on productivity in sales organizations, and there's just a lot changing in the way people are managing roles and allocating resources in sales organizations. So thinking through those reallocations is an important thing for managers to keep in mind, and it will influence how sales organizations are managed in the next 12 months.
Well, that ties into something I read on your blog. I read it last week. I don't remember when it was published, but it talked about the trend being sort of fewer salespeople and fewer sales support people. And one of the things that I find in working with our clients is that there's a disconnect between sales and marketing on what the definition of a lead is. I've got one client in particular that generated 9,000 leads in 2012, and sales said they got 0 leads, and it was basically a breakdown on lead definition. I was wondering if you feel like the definition of a lead is important for sales and marketing to agree on, and if so, what elements of that definition or what qualifies a lead in your mind for salespeople?
This is an interesting question to me. Mostly it's interesting because I'm not sure I really understand it. In fact, the part I don't think I understand, let me explain that, is why this is problematic. And so my instinct is that it's problematic for marketing, and in fact the question is most relevant to marketing. I don't see this as being a question that a lot of sales leaders are asking. And I think maybe the reason for that is that leads are a currency that are relevant to a marketing organization. They're not really the most relevant thing that's measured for sales leaders. Sales organizations are focused on generating productive revenue and, profitable revenue, and some of those financial outcomes. And so the fact that leads are sometimes poorly defined, I guess the simple answer to your question from my standpoint is it's a potential customer. A lead is anyone who could potentially do business with you. But help me understand a little bit why it is a problematic issue for your audience.
I think it kind of dates back to the earliest incidents I found of an article about the alignment between marketing and sales was 1993. And I think it's still a hot topic. And I really think it crosses the aisle, so to speak, between marketing and sales. I think it's not as relevant to sales because they've been conditioned to expect poor quality leads and to some extent discount them. And I guess what I'm saying is it's incredibly inefficient for an organization to spend money in marketing generating opportunities that are virtually ignored by sales. As a matter of fact, I have an article that's called Why Your Sales Force Needs Fewer Leads that talks about, that the sales force needs fewer raw, kind of low quality, lightly filtered leads. They need leads that are fully qualified. And having said that, I don't know if you read a lot about this, but I read an article just this morning about BANT qualified leads, budget, authority, need, and time frame, and I strongly disagree with BANT as a lead qualification criteria. But I think what it comes down to is that if you have marketing spending money generating so-called leads, if they're not filtered or qualified prior to going to sales, about 95% of them are just ignored by sales. So I think it's an important thing for companies to solve. I don't think sometimes salespeople feel like they're going to get good quality leads, and as a result, they kind of go out and do their own thing. And I think that's really pretty inefficient.
Yeah, so I think I understand that a little more. I think that, to me, what it sounds like is not a definition problem, but an accountability and an alignment problem, and making sure that the kind of things you're asking sales organizations to do align, or the similar responsibilities of a marketing organization also align with those things. Part of I think what makes this tricky and a difficult problem is that the roles of marketing and sales are very fluid, and they're changing very quickly in recent years. Just within sales organizations, we see a real increase in the number of inside sales people and a real investment and increase in the resources devoted to the very senior-most salespeople, what you might call strategic account managers. Mm-hmm. And in a recent talk, Neil Rackham gave this talk at our recent conference. And Neil makes the point that there's a bifurcation that's happening in B2B selling where customers are demanding transactional, sort of low-value relationships through the Internet. They want to, in many ways, self-provision their requirements. They want to be self-served through automated websites and those sort of things. On the other hand, they're looking for really high value added strategic relationships, very solution focused relationships, often with the very same vendors. And so the issue is allocating resources to make sure that when salespeople do get involved, it's in a very high value added way that can't be duplicated in a low cost way over the web. And these are very fluid decisions, and as a result, I think the role, especially in the B2B environment, the role of marketing and sales is often one of kind of give and take, and it's being redefined, I think, almost minute by minute in many industries and companies.
And Neil Rackham also was quoted in an article after he gave a keynote address at the Business Marketing Association meeting, basically saying that marketing and sales are like two ships passing in the night, unfortunately. And they both have the same ultimate objective, which is driving revenue. but they don't do a very good job of working together on it. So I think your point, though, is well taken. You mentioned it just a couple of minutes ago about mobile and social media. I was just wondering if, as you look ahead to 2013, on the sales support and the sales management sides of the house, so to speak, what do you see that people should be focusing on as they wrap up 2012 and head into 2013?
Well, let's take those individually. First, in the mobile arena, the use of tablets is really exploding right now, and it's very early for sales organizations. Salesforce's, probably 90% of B2B sales organizations have some aspiration to integrate tablets into the sales organization in some way. However, they're only about 15% of those companies that have actually gotten a mature implementation. Many others are experimenting right now, and we've recently done some research. It's very interesting. It sort of points to the fact that tablets aren't simply a device that helps you do the same things a little bit more efficiently or in a different place or more often. They're actually fundamentally redesigning basic aspects of the sales process. They are really enhancing conversations that salespeople have with customers or prospects during the sales interaction, during the actual sales conversation. They're not just used to distribute information. They're often used to actually capture information and create a really interesting experience and a much more compelling experience for a customer. These things are being created on the fly. The expense of using tablets is really manageable for a lot of companies. So there's a perceived very, very high ROI on the use of tablets, and their adoption is really exploding in B2B sales organizations. I think we can see a lot of innovation in applications that are designed for salespeople to be effective in sales calls and are focused on the tablet platform. Social media, in many ways, is in the same position as it's very early for B2B sales organizations, and in terms of the life cycle of defining a strategy for using social media. Very few organizations really have a defined strategy. Most believe that it is productive, and there's a ROI there, but there's just an awful lot of experimentation. Some good, some a little bit frightening, because with social media, social media reflects a lack of, a decline of management control over individual salespeople, and it argues for a different style. I think command and control, sort of top-down sales organizations will have the hardest time adapting to the use of social media. And in fact, when you look at those industries that are lagging in adoption, regulated industries or private investment banking industries or fields, they're far behind. The leading adopters of social media technology firms, and so there's a lot of ground to be made up there. So those are a few things we're thinking and talking about here.
Well, you mentioned at the very beginning of our discussion here that social and mobile is, I believe, I can't remember, use the word related, but is that just simply because of the proximity of the device, or are there other reasons that you say that they're related or connected?
Yeah, part of it is just the mobile represents a platform on which a lot of social media communication happens. So that's really the key point. And as both things are, implemented in sales organizations, I think you'll see them coming together in many ways.
Well, what have we missed? What are some of the significant things, or other things that you're looking at for next year? What have we missed so far?
Gosh, it's hard to know what you don't know, I guess, right? We've talked a little bit about I think, three or four things that are important to our constituency. One that I touched on earlier but didn't really flesh out perhaps is the use of analytics. Many of our members are actually in the sales operations field. Their job is really to support productivity initiatives, and as a result, they're very much influenced by new technology coming out. And so we try to keep abreast of things that are happening there. We see a lot of innovation around, and you might even call it the democratization of information within organizations. There are a lot of companies that are launching, for lack of a better phrase, dashboard applications that are easy to use and build, that are easy to implement, even in large organizations with IT bureaucracy. They're sort of IT-less applications. And I think we'll see an awful lot of this. I think what is interesting to us about that is what it means for sales management, what it means to be a good sales manager. I think it now means that you really have to have your finger on the pulse of these new technologies. You have to be fluent and able to implement them. You have to be able to diagnose problems and situations in your own environment where you can use the applications. And so that's of keen interest to us. And so it's an exciting time, I think, because of all these new developments, a lot of innovation. And so that's sort of what we're thinking about here.
Well, great. What's the best way for our audience to get in touch with you if they want to follow up with a question or learn more about your organization?
Well, we have a website at salesmanagement.org, and we also have a LinkedIn group, which you can find on LinkedIn if you search for the Sales Management Association. Both have large communities, and we'd welcome participation from your audience.
Well, Bob, thanks so much for joining us today. For now, this is Dan McDade signing off from another edition of PowerViews. Thank you for watching.